just finished wrestling a 3-year-old to go down for a nap, even though she was extremely tired. So that's how my day is going. Also finished stressing about the help in the house, and just general rudeness and bad attitude. So it has been quite a day. And I'm hoping that it doesn't translate in this conversation that we're about to have, because it really should not. This is something that, from the title, you know what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about family dynamics and navigating new family dynamics as a new bride. I feel like for me, a new bride is anywhere that has been married between 1 day and 5 years. Because it feels like you're in a constant state of learning and unlearning. What I was basically trying to say before I was interrupted, I hope I can actually remember what I was trying to say, because at this point I have obviously and officially lost my train of thought. But I find that at different points in time, you have to adopt certain tactics or methods depending on what it is that's going on. So in a lot of ways, there's a general rule of thumb that I have been following, because I can't speak for others. It's a conversation that I had with so many other people before I got married, including my mother. But it was not until I entered into marriage that I started having the desire to apply things. I still came in with, and that's everybody else's opinion, but like, I just need to figure out things for myself. It's important to think about other people's opinions. With that in mind, you can just end the video. There's nothing else you need to really hear from me besides that. That is like the end all be all of it all, is the importance of abiding to other people's opinions to a significant extent. Now, for me, I have found that my umbrella thing when it comes to dealing with people in general, talk less of people that you care about and love, or your partner cares about and loves, then now you start caring about and loving as well, is to manage your expectations. I feel like most of us, especially because we are marrying into a new family, we go in with a lot of expectations of what our experience will be. Some of them extremely good, some of them extremely scary, because I've heard a lot of stories of women that go in already expecting that there's going to be beef and fights at every corner. And that in itself is already a scary thing. But what I have noticed is managing my expectations is definitely something that has proven very helpful for me. I feel like it's also very important to not take in baggage from your original family when joining a new family, or when starting to be part of a new family, or when being attached to a new family. I feel like with me, there's a certain dynamic that I have in my nuclear family that is a polar opposite to the dynamic I had in my extended family. So in my nuclear family, we're very, very close-knit, very tight. We still are. We don't take anything that any of us really do for granted. Like, we're very much, there's like a value system. And for a lot of people, I don't think that works, because a lot of people feel like and believe that with family, you shouldn't really have to appreciate things that other people do. Like, your family is what we do. Family does that for each other. And I don't know if it is because of the things that we had been through as a family, but we're not like that. So going in with the mindset that you have in your initial nuclear family, your natural nuclear family, is such a big mistake, because people are so different. We're all shaped by so many different things. We are shaped by nature, we are shaped by nurture, and we are also shaped by a certain level of emotional intelligence. We are shaped by, under the bracket of nurture, is just like life experience in general. And I think one of the biggest disappointments that you might receive going into a new family is when you go in expecting that things are going to be exactly the way they were with your mommy and your daddy and your siblings. Um, that is, I think, one of the biggest adjustments for me. That has been one of the biggest adjustments for me. The second thing I think has been really important, aside from managing expectations, is the importance of setting boundaries. I think it's important to set boundaries for yourself, and it's important to set boundaries for people that you love, so that there is peace and harmony in every relationship. It is a tough adjustment for anybody, like on both sides, on all sides, getting into this new relationship, because you start to realize that as much as you and your partner's relationship is the most important, you have now inherited secondary relationships that also have to be pruned and managed to a certain degree. And that in itself, and figuring out what works with everybody, there's no general rule, but taking out your time to figure out what works for everybody is really important, as compared to a blanket statement. My mom, I can talk to my mother this way, so why can't I not talk to my mother-in-law this way? I can talk to my siblings this way, so why can't I talk to my sibling-in-laws this way? Two completely different things. It does feel like you're being born in a different scenario, and with that, there will be situations where you will overstep because of your expectations, they will overstep because of their expectations, and it's just important to set boundaries, I think, as early as possible. Unfortunately, the life thing and the life rule in general is that it's always hard to set boundaries until something happens. So in a lot of situations, you don't understand that you need to set particular boundaries until something happens that makes you feel like, okay, next time I don't want this to happen. So it's hard, but I think one has to be very understanding of themselves. Give yourself the amount of wiggle room that you give to other people to adjust and to learn and to accept things. Something that my sister told me some time ago is that when scenarios play out with people, you can confront them. When you confront them, you have two choices: either to adjust to what it is that is their belief system, so adjust to the fact that, okay, they might never just accept what you're saying, or they might never understand it, or you keep on fighting and you keep on getting to the point again where you get to the point of, should I continue fighting or should I adjust? You choose continue fighting. The next line, should I continue fighting or should I adjust? So in many ways, you're put in a position where you have to adjust. And adjusting doesn't mean giving up your values. Adjusting doesn't mean letting go of who you are. Adjusting means protecting yourself emotionally. And that is really important because everybody views things very differently. I remember I was having a conversation last night actually about what sensitivity is. And I was having this conversation with my sister and one of my best friends, Dami. And we're both very much sensible. We both have sense. We're both very much sensible. And I think I can trust her judgment a lot, and I think she can trust my judgment a lot. However, we did not agree per se on what sensitivity meant. And that just goes to show that even people that are of sound mind and body may understand something that seems simple or seems very clear-cut in very different ways. And just envision that in a larger family, envision that with people that are in different age brackets, different phases of their lives, going through different things. I feel like, we start out a lot of things wanting things to be our way. It's the main character energy. It's something that is unavoidable, unfortunately. Let me check if this babe's sleeping. I think she's sleeping. It's something that is unavoidable, unfortunately. But when you enter into another family, you have to accept that you will not always be the main character. And what that means is that it is not only going to be your feelings that are going to be the most important thing. And you can fight and you can feel like, okay, it's not every time, but this particular time it is my turn. But you also have to have it in mind that the way that you are battling with this main character energy is the way that everybody else is battling with the same personality deficiency of constantly feeling like you're the main character. And it's hard to give yourself in that way, it's hard to let yourself go in that way, especially if you are an emotionally aware person, especially if you have a certain degree of emotional intelligence that makes it so that when you're upset, you're not confused as to why you're upset. You know exactly why you're upset. It's it seems like a good thing, but it can also be a stressor in that situation, because a lot of people that are aware also feel the desire to voice out every single frustration that they have. It is a problem that should not be a problem if we were all on the same page, but as we are not on the same page, one can understand why it is a problem. There are certain scenarios where you're expressing things that are really important to you, and they might not be as important to the other person, and you're going in with the expectation of being validated, but that might not be the case. And it is not because you are not loved. It is not because they don't care about you. It is just that mentally and emotionally, you're on completely different levels. Like you're thinking of things very differently. Like I said, there are generational barriers that I still experience with my mom till today. There are certain things that I will say, or certain ways I will express myself to her, or my sister will express herself to her, and she will just not be able to get it. And with your own immediate family, there's always a tendency to give some kind of leeway because you're used to it. And I just wish that there was a way, I'm sure there is over time, where you can give that same leeway to your new family. I think that, being a woman and entering into a new family is such a difficult experience. No matter how amazing your new family is, it is a difficult and cumbersome experience, because for a lot of people, their partners are not aware of what exactly they should tell their partner to look out for. So a lot of men generally, I'm so sorry, I apologize to my husband, I'm not using it as an example, but there are certain things that men are just completely oblivious to. So there will be certain microaggressions or little things that are an expectation of you that you would expect that it would be your partner to tell you, but your partner cannot tell you because they've never been in that situation before, and they just simply do not know. And a lot of the responsibility will fall on you as the woman to figure it out so that peace will reign. Because anytime there's any kind of unusual tension within families, people always look towards the women. Like, especially if it's like an emotional or something mental or emotional, anything that has to do with like not physical, or there's an inconvenience, most of the time you will be looked upon to fill in that gap. And that means that in a lot of ways you have to be open to learning, and you have to be open to learning through experiences. The one thing I want to say is that no matter how rough you feel like your story with your in-laws, with your new siblings and stuff like that, no matter how rough you feel like it has started, if you are able to learn from every single experience, as uncomfortable as it might be, as confusing as it might be, you will definitely find yourself falling less and less into these kinds of traps. Because at the end of the day, let's be honest, it's not like human beings are going out of their way to always and constantly antagonize people that are their family members. A lot of the time, it is external factors that come together to make a situation more volatile than it needs to be. It is not usually your family member or your new family member that says and just looks at you and says, I just want to take the piss. I'm sure there are situations, we all watch Nigerian films, and a lot of the messages that I get as well, I can tell that the most volatile interaction does tend to be the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law. I can't really speak for that experience, because in as much as I am the first woman to marry into my husband's family, my mother-in-law is one that gives people space. So I think she probably enjoyed having that space in her household to make decisions. So to a large extent, obviously, grandmas will still be grandmas and they still want to make decisions above your head. But for the most part, when it comes to like our relationship, our household, she kind of stays in her lane and she lets us do our own thing. So in scenarios that you know, you have a mother-in-law that is quite overbearing and stuff like that. I can't really speak for how best, because I haven't had to put myself in that situation. But just thinking about it, based on other people's experiences, I guess, and based on stories that I've heard, I think one of the easiest ways to maneuver that dynamic is trying to establish a personal relationship with your mother-in-law that is outside of her son. I feel like for a lot of people, they feel like they should only interact with their mother-in-laws and stuff via the child of said mother-in-law. And in a lot of cases, it does work. Like if your family is just naturally non-confrontational, everybody just did their day, you guys get together when you get together, aside from that, everybody minds their business, then you can get away with just interacting with your in-laws based on your partner. But in situations where you can tell that the prongs that your in-laws have in your partner are deep, the best thing for you to do, because in reality, no matter how much you explain certain things, it's like me. If my husband tells me, your mom does this, your mom does that, or your siblings do this, your siblings do that, and I've never seen it because of love, because I've never been in that situation with them before, because of familiarity, the natural desire to defend the people that are close to you, it's going to be really hard for me to be supportive. It's going to be really hard for me to take their side, especially really early on in marriage, where a lot of us are still just thinking, so it's me and this person now forever. And you're thinking, please let me go and greet my mommy. A lot of people are still calling their parents' homes my house, I'm going to my house type energy. So it takes a lot to get to that point where you can now see your partner's point of view. And in the meantime, the best thing that you can do to keep your sanity is to try and establish a separate relationship with your in-laws that does not have to do with their child. It doesn't mean that their child will not come up in conversations, but, and I'm talking from both ends here. So you can be the son-in-law, you can be the daughter-in-law. I think is to try and make sure that you have something, you and your mother-in-law or father-in-law or whoever it is that you see yourself butting heads with. It would be nice to have something that you bond on. That is if you are interested. A lot of people come into situations like this coming from a place of fear and coming from a place of maybe secondhand hurt. They know people that have had bad experiences with their in-laws, or even their mother has had bad experiences with their father's in-laws and stuff like that, and it makes it more difficult to desire something positive. It makes it easier for you to see bad in everything when a lot of things are really just a misunderstanding. And I think that is one of the most important reasons why the first two things, as I said, is make sure that your expectations, keep them as low as possible. If you can talk to your mother-in-law, even if it's about the house or about school, you don't have to have the deepest relationship, but you can have a relationship that is cordial and nice. I know somebody like me, when it comes to my expectations of relationships in general, across the board, it is always very, very high. And a lot of times I have to go into situations knowing that what it is that I want, the intricacies that I desire in relationships is not always what other people are looking for. And I have to be okay with that. And you have to be okay with that as well. I know a lot of people are like really excited by the concept of like, oh, you know, my mother-in-law is my bestie and stuff like that. That's amazing. Like, it would be amazing if your mother-in-law is your bestie. My mother-in-law is not my bestie, but I love her. Like, I don't think we're ever going to be besties because we're so different, but we respect each other, we love each other, and we have things that we still talk about and interact with that are in common. We have similar senses of humor. We would not refer to each other as best friends. There are people that have it, but you have to understand that your situation is not following any map. You're the one that is determining the direction that it goes. If you see that it's actually not going to work in a certain way, the bestie thing, you cannot afford to be calling your mother-in-law every day, You cannot afford to make decisions concerning your children based on her advice and stuff like that. You can find other things that you bond on. You don't have to be looking for the most extreme and the most tight-knit and close-knit relationship that you can possibly get. For a lot of people, especially older people, having a certain level of respect and regard for them is enough. I feel like it is our generation, and when I say our generation, I mean everybody that is under the age of maybe 32 or 33. We're the ones that now desire, because of things that we've been through, the fact that we're now so much more aware on the emotional ramifications of things, we're the ones that desire things that are deep and intricate. And unfortunately, it's not every every older person that will vibe with that. Like, some people just want you to be well behaved, to be kind, to be loving. You know, they can talk to you, they can laugh, and that is it. It's not every in-law or every family member that wants to be the person you even confide in. And you have to accept that. And I think once you accept that, you know, you have to figure out what level everybody is on and try your best to match it. It makes life much easier. I think the third thing is to eventually be able to vocalize your expectations to your partner. I think it's really important to vocalize your expectations to your partner based on their family and vice versa, because there might be a lot of things that you do that your partner doesn't understand, especially if you're a woman. I keep on saying especially if you're a woman because I'm talking from a woman's perspective, and I don't really have a lot of close guy friends. The only close guy friend I have that is my best friend, Alfred, he's not yet officially married. So any interaction he's having right now with his girlfriend's mom and dad and stuff like that is not yet to the full, you know, it's not to the full capacity. It's just like a taster of what's going to happen. So I can't speak from the male perspective. But when it comes to women, we sense a lot of things, some of them that are not there in relationships. We calculate body language. We calculate the tone, undertone of things. We read between the lines. And that can cause you to respond in a certain way that your partner doesn't understand. The one thing that you want to do in every situation is carry your partner along. Are you upset with somebody in the family? Let your partner know. They might not do anything about it, but there might be a point in time that something happens and a meeting is called on your head, and you don't want it to be that your partner is just blindsided. Let it be a situation where I've been telling you since you did nothing about it. Now this has happened. Let us share the blame as one. So stuff like that, obviously that's a negative connotation, but on the other side as well, it is important that your partner has a role in the relationship that you have with their family. I think it helps them to feel like you're putting in a conscious effort, helps them to feel like, you know, you're a team, and vice versa. If there's anything that you and your partner can do for your partner that can help them better ease into the new family dynamic, they're two completely different families trying to merge in some way, there will still be things that are separated. Try to work out those intricacies of the Venn diagram and both of you in the middle, and the things that are still going to be separate and the things that are going to be together. It takes a lot, and it takes being able to be open and honest. Like, Deji and I have had a lot of very honest and open conversations about our families that are not the most palatable, that are not the most enjoyable for either of us, but conversations that needed to be had for the benefit of our household. We look at our families as prototypes. We know the kind of people that come out of both families. We know the things that we really desire to take out of both families. We know the things that we desire to leave behind and focus on our own selves. And you cannot do that unless you truly understand that you're a team. And I feel like that is what will eventually grow to you kind of having your partner as the number one. So your family members will still be there. You'll still love them. You'll still care about them, but then your partner will be number one. And by the time you get to the point of your partner being number one, it means that, God forbid, there are situations where battles have to be fought on your behalf. Your partner has the full knowledge of your personality. the full knowledge of your countenance, the full knowledge of what you're capable and incapable of doing and saying. And they can now voice opinions for you in spaces that you might not be involved in. The fourth and final thing I think is important, is to know your place in every family that you're in. Some of us go from being firstborn children to entering the family and just being like in the middle of the lastborn and the second to lastborn or something like that. And with that, the dynamics change. The expectations from you also change. And if you go in with firstborn energy into a family where there's an established firstborn that is doing what needs to be done, there will be a clash, because that is not your role in that household. I feel like something that a lot of us that are marrying into families do not want to accept, and this is like a hard truth, do it is what you will, it is honestly my opinion, is that for the most part, in most family dynamics, families are already tight-knit and close-knit. You cannot in any way expect that the first year that you enter into a marriage with somebody, all the secret meetings that are being had with the family, you will be invited. I think when you start expecting that the same responsibilities and the same roles that the children, the people that were already born into the family, are shouldering, that you are expected to, or that you feel the desire to shoulder those, is when you have a problem. Because it takes so long to work your way into loving and accepting people regardless of how they entered into your life or into your household. You cannot expect to be competing with the emotions of people that have been there and have been through so much. And I think that's one of the traps that I fell into. I fell into the trap of feeling like the role that I have in my household, like we're four with only my mom, like anything that's happening, we all have the meetings together. I entered into another family where there are more people, so it's not always the most convenient to have everybody involved in the situation. They involve the primary people with the hopes that you will tell your partner. And for some time it was a thing to me of like, why am I not being involved in this? Like, why am I not being called upon to have these serious conversations? But you do have to understand that every family works differently, and sometimes it does take time. There might be a scenario where you just never enter into the inner circle. And I think a really good example of this is The Crown. Who watches The Crown? Diana just finished it up to like this new season that's coming out in November, so till the end of season 4. And I remember Prince Philip in the beginning, he was still like very much the outsider, so decisions were being made for him and stuff like that. At the point in time when he started to finally assimilate into the family in his own right, it was a thing where, you know, certain things were happening that required everybody to come together, require you to come together, all hands on deck. And then you might find some responsibilities being thrust upon you that push you into the limelight. But the truth of the matter is, for most people, no matter how close-knit you feel like it is, or no matter how many responsibilities are finally thrust onto you, how many things are said to you, how many people confide in you, there's always this thing of feeling like you're an outsider. And that is because for the most part, you cannot fully ever separate yourself from your initial family. And that's something that you have to accept, is that you're not leaving one family to join another one. You're adding an extra family. And this extra family is adding an extra person. And it's not going to be the most organic thing for everybody to just gel and it to be like we've been together from the beginning. For Christ's sake, there are people within these initial families that still don't even know everything that goes on. So the expectation that you will now come in and just be privy to certain things is something that I feel like all of us need to manage. It's something that I am constantly trying to manage as well, because I have the personality of a firstborn child, meaning that when there's problem and stuff like that, when there are issues, I feel like I should be in the front and center. But they already have the people that are in the front and center. Like, you came into a family where there are already people that are in the front and center. So it is up to you. It is your responsibility to now figure out where you fit into the whole equation. And for me right now, I think this is obviously 1 year in. I feel like where I fit into the equation, it might be a role that I feel is not important enough in the family, but it actually is quite important, and that is being my own partner's safe space. And I think that should be the one thing that you focus on. If you're a people pleaser, or you have been a people pleaser at some point in time in your life, there's a constant desire to feel like you're showing up and showing out for this new family. You want to show them that you're worthy of their love, worthy of their affection, worthy of their respect. You are smart, you are this, you are that, you can control this, you can control that. But you do have to remember that your primary mission going into this family is for the person that you married, and everything else is secondary. So with that in mind, your primary focus should also be on the happiness and the joy of the person that you married. That means that there'll be a lot of times when you and your extended family now might not see eye to eye on things, but the most important thing will always be that you and your partner see eye to eye on things. There will not be situations, at least I hope not, I don't envisage situations where something can happen and my husband is on one side, but then I'm on the other side with the rest of his family members, as compared to being on his side. I feel like that is when you'll be like, okay, there's something wrong somewhere. That is the truth, because it's you and your husband against the world. So it's nice to have these extra people to lean on for motherly advice and affection, fatherly advice and affection, to have some extra siblings. But you do have to be aware of the fact that as much as you might come in wanting things to be exactly the way it is in your family, you want everybody's siblings to just be like your own, and you want to be tight with everybody, it is not always possible. And I feel like it would be nice if you came in that way and then you were now pleasantly surprised and it became possible, and like there's an active desire, you can see the desire from everybody to kind of band together, have these conversations, people checking in on you checking in on them, loving on each other. But I think it's always safer to go in with the least amount, so that you can be pleasantly surprised with whatever it is comes along. And then when it is your turn to be the family that is welcoming somebody else in, to be the family that is, or the mother-in-law, you can now go ahead in your generation to make things better. The vision that I have for, if I have any sons, the vision that I have for, and if they decide to get married, to be honest, or even my daughter Zoe, or any other daughters, if they decide to get married, is to be able to unify my children, is to be able to take everybody that comes in, marriage or otherwise, as my child, take out time to spend time with them, one-on-one, individual with them. The same thing with my siblings, partners, like any of their partners that they bring into the family. I would love to have the opportunity to have one-on-one relationships with them, because that's what I envision an ideal situation to be. Ideal is not always attainable, but the one that you can do it. I know for a fact that my mom having me and having me as like her first child, and therefore technically her closest child, sorry to the rest of my siblings, technically her closest child, there are certain situations that will never play out in our household when it comes to in-laws, like my brother's wives, or like partners, or like my sister's partners, or whatever. There are certain things that will just never play out, because I will be there to make sure that doesn't happen. I will be there to make sure that it doesn't happen. I will be there to make sure that I can break as many tropes as I possibly can, and you don't feel like an outsider. But it just is what it is in the generation that we are all marrying into at this present point in time. There'll be a new wave coming soon, promise. There'll be a new wave coming soon where things will be better and stuff like that, and then we can all be great and just be talking about how amazing everybody is and stuff like that. In the meantime, we move, I think. So this is my opinion, this is my perspective on it right now. I wouldn't refer to myself as guarded when it comes to my family members. Like, both my immediate family members, so my mom, my siblings, or my newer family members, Deji's parents and his siblings, I wouldn't consider myself guarded. I will, however, consider myself calculative. I like to calculate things to avoid situations that are not necessary, and to also protect myself from having to experience things that are also not necessary. I will, or my children, to experience things that are not necessary. I will go above and beyond to keep the peace as much as I can. I do have it in mind as well that if there's ever a point in time to put my foot down, my husband knows the type of person I am. So if I were to put my foot down on something, I know that he might not be happy about it, but I would have his support, and that is because of the fact that the line of communication is open. And unfortunately, I'm the type of person that if I feel it, I have to tell him, no matter what, be it friends, be it family, be it some stranger on the road. I will most likely tell DG. Whether or not he responds is a different situation entirely and a different story entirely that will probably be part of this series. One of these days we'll talk about that as well, but I'm just wishing everybody the best. Entering into a marriage is an interesting and intricate thing, and a lot of the parts of it cannot be untangled from each other. There is a primary part, like I've said, but a lot of the other parts are attached. The veins and arteries. You and your husband's relationship is the main heart, or whatever, the main, yeah, the heart, and then the relationships you have to build with other people, including friends of your partner. That'll be a conversation for another day. Including friends, your friends and friends of your partner is also a very important part of this ecosystem, or this body system that we're trying to form. And it is not a hard and fast thing. My advice to most women is just to cut yourself some slack. Know what it is that you would prefer, but also know what it is that you can handle. Because your preference, your preferred might not always be available. So just make sure that you have the things. Okay, I would love this. This is my number 3, but this is also my bare minimum. Sometimes you might have to stick with the bare minimum. Bare minimum is not always the worst thing in the world, but just have it in mind. A lot of us in our generation, at least I know from my own personality, we have specific ways that we want things to be based on previous experiences, based on other people's experiences. There are things that we are actively trying to avoid. We're almost violent about the fact that we have the things that we like, and the things that we will accept, and the things that we will not accept. But one has to give leeway in a lot of situations, because you're not dealing with robots, you're dealing with human beings. And with human beings, you cannot always say, this is the way I want it to be, and it must be like that. Unfortunately, you cannot do that. Even with your own children, you can't do that. At any age, you cannot do that. Take it from somebody that has been a mother for 3 years. There is no age where you can truly impose exactly what it is you want and get the exact results that you want without any fail, any complaint, any deviation. It's just not. It's just not. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this opened your eyes and your mind. I hope this was an honest enough conversation for you. I'll know when I'm editing it, I will know if this video is actually to come out or if it just doesn't make any sense. But do not forget that you are sugar, you are spice, and you are bomb and sugar. I love you guys so much, and good luck.